it's me, Jess. Welcome to my channel. I'm here with another channeled message. This is a specific message. It might resonate with you, it might not. All right, so this is a very specific message that is coming through. I've got an energy around me right now, and this person is calling themselves a divine masculine. I really feel like this person feels they are your divine masculine for whoever this message is coming through for. There's a real partnership energy here. So this person definitely thinks that they're your soulmate, if not your twin flame, something like that. But there is a partnership energy here, and I'm hearing the word marriage. So I don't know if you are married to this person or if that is very much on the cards, where this person is maybe thinking about marriage with you. They see that kind of future and they see that kind of bond between the two of you. This person loves you a lot. It is very genuine and it is very sincere. But this divine masculine that I'm picking up on has some reckoning. I'm hearing that word come through very specific, and that to me is very much associated with like a karmic judgment, unearthing kind of movement. So he's got this kind of reckoning that he has to go through in regards of his past and who he was in the past. And I feel like that's what this message is about. It's like clearing some things up around that. So this divine masculine is wanting to, I'm hearing like clear some things up, explain something. He wants to suck the pain out of a particular situation, but he doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't want to make the situation worse for anybody involved. But I think that's why he is bringing this particular message through. So there's a lot of bits and bobs here. So just bear with me. So he wants to kind of start from the beginning. Now, I feel like this message is coming through about a friends with benefits situation that he was involved in his past. And this does actually feel like a past situation. I do not believe that this masculine has been tempted by this person or been unfaithful with this person while they were with you. This definitely does feel like something here from their past. The issue comes in because after these two were done having whatever arrangement they had, he continued to be friends with this person. And I feel like he had this person around you, maybe a lot, like up in your face, around your family and friends, because some of you could potentially already be married here to this person and did not disclose the nature of their relationship or what had gone on between the two of them in the past. And I feel like these two have this kind of, I'm going to call it a guise of this like, oh, well, we're such good friends. And me calling it a guise, it's wrapped up in the whole reckoning of this particular situation. So I feel like that's either come out or it's something that you've asked about and he wants to be clear with you and he wants to confess certain things. But he recognizes, there's that reckoning word, recognizes as a part of this reckoning that he has not been honest with you and that it could ding the trust in the relationship. He doesn't know what you're going to think about him having withheld this information from you. And he knows it is a kind of betrayal in a social sense. Like he did not betray you with this person schmeggerly, but it is in like a social sense that they have this secret between the two of them. And it's kind of demonstrating a loyalty or an allegiance, with that person over you. And he didn't really see it that way before. And it's because this man is like trying to hide and outrun from the truth of himself in the past, which is what he wants to make clear. But I feel like he's been outrunning this for a long time. Now, here's what I mean by this, okay? So I feel like this man, he's telling me that he grew up in a household where he was taught morals. And I think for a lot of you, there was a religious component to that, but he was raised in a household where he was taught right and wrong. And there were no issues internally for him, I think, through high school, because he's saying, I lived that way for a long time, but I'm getting a feeling that it was like through childhood, like up through high school, he didn't like rebel or anything, but it also didn't feel like it was coming from inside of him. Like he didn't feel connected to that, or he just thought it was something parents tell their kids or something like that. He could have felt like it was pushed on him. You know what I'm saying? So when he hit young adulthood and he was out doing whatever he was doing, he could have, went away to college or, whatever. He went a little nuts for butts and he was out about the town. And in a way, right, wrong, or indifferent, he's saying this was kind of his, I don't think it was like a rebellion. It was his way of kind of challenging the morals or exploring those morals because, again, he didn't think that, he went a little bit crazy. And I think that there was a lot of casual relationships, and that's when he involved with this particular friends with benefits situation. And here's where the reckoning comes in, because I feel like whenever this man met you, everything changed. I'm really getting that. I feel like it's like a sun energy that's coming through for you, where meeting you was like this warm, bright, well integrated light. And it shone a light in this particular area of his life that had to do with like I don't even think he was dating, okay? Like his dating schmegsual practices, the rut that he had kind of gotten into. That's kind of, in a certain sense, like unnatural. It's not something that he was always going to have to come up out of this. You know what I'm saying? But you kind of had shown a light on that aspect of his life and the groove that he had kind of gotten into. And he's giving me the impression of like, when your foot falls asleep and sometimes you don't recognize it until you go to move it and you're like, whoa, we got to get some blood pumping in this immediately. It was kind of like that, where he had gotten himself in a certain position. This is like a metaphor, right? He'd gotten himself in a certain position, I think psychologically, where he couldn't feel his own foot. And I feel like in this metaphor, his foot was his conscience and his morality. And this had to do with women, I think in particular, and friendship, because there's a huge karmic element of friendship for everybody involved in this situation. Why he developed friendships with women, acquaintances, conversations, and it overlaps with his schmegsuality. And this position that he had gotten himself in, it's like he didn't want to have to think about it. He didn't want to be bothered about the morality of his actions in that arena, internally or externally. And so I feel the way that this is very ego defense mechanism for me, where I feel like he was trying to protect this like inner self-image that he had of himself as the person he was raised as, this like moral person, this good person, somebody who is considerate. Like if they hurt your feelings, they don't like that and they're going to change their behavior and they're going to fold that in, He wanted to maintain that kind of a self-image. And I do feel like, especially how this man was raised, I think he wanted a monogamous relationship and maybe a family or something. He always wanted that. So it's giving me the impression that he was always going to have to come up out of this mindset and this stagnation. It was not sustainable. And a part of him knew it, but I think that part of him was his conscience. And also the part of him that could become aware of the fact that he was behaving badly and not considering people. And this isn't just the women he involved with, because I get the sense that there were some affairs and there was some cheating and stuff. And, so it was the men that were attached to these women, or like the other women, whoever they were dating, and around, they were also treated very badly in this, but it was his conscience that could have alerted him to that. But if he was alerted, he would have to make those changes if he was going to maintain that self-image. So there's something about this where he pushed this below his conscious awareness. And I think the way that he did that in the past was by asserting that he had some kind of worldview and some kind of opinion about this arena of his life, schmegsuality, about maybe women, something here like that. And whatever worldview he stated he had, whatever banner he was flying over this part of his life, it was meant to be a blank check for him. It was meant to be some kind of blanket perspective that really the subtext of it was, so as long as this metric is met, you don't have to look any closer. You don't have to look at the details and the nuances of who's involved in the situation. So long as this like broad brushstroke is met, you're good and you're moral and you can maintain, we're okay with it internally. Like you can maintain this self-image of you are a good person and that you are a considerate person, etc. And I think for a lot of you, this has to do with Schmegs is not like his worldview thing. It's like, I think it's something like Schmegs is not immoral so long as it is undertaken by two consensual adults. But again, I don't think he thought very deeply on the aspect of consent as well, because it feels very like in the moment. I don't think he was like, and who can consent and who can't consent, how many drinks is too many, or like, you get what I'm saying. He didn't think too deeply on it. It's just like, okay, in that moment. And so that is kind of an element that got wrapped up here with this friends with benefits situation, because and this ties in with his guilt and shame, because everything came to a head whenever he met you. And I don't think that you quite realized that, right? So you had shown a light on this. And I think he had this friends with benefits situation thing going on in the background, or he had just ended it or something here like that. But also I'm getting that he had several other casual relationships going on the side. None of these situations did he apply his emotion to, and he didn't want to, and he didn't want to be bothered by it. But then when he met you, and you were somebody that he wanted to have it all with, or he had feelings for you, deeper feelings, more than just, I'm just gonna rut like an animal, like, sorry to be gross, but that's what he was doing. So, And the way he related to those feelings, because he'd been in this stupor for so long, is by that feeling of his foot being asleep, that stagnation energy. And when that happens, you got to kind of like flex your foot and maybe hobble around on it for a second before you can actually walk normally. So there could have been some kind of like awkward, for those of you that are not married to this person, or like you're not in some kind of relationship, there could have been an awkward like stagnation where it took like more time, or he was weird or like awkward, whatever it was. I think possibly had you in a self-protective mode, and you could have read his energy as being maybe disinterested in you because he wasn't pursuing, or he wasn't doing it in the right way, or he was like hot and cold, or he was very emotionally detached. Or you could have found out, for some of you could have found out about this friends with benefits situation because it could have been on the tail end of it, and he's not loyal to her, he's not like committed to her or anything like that. And he wants that for you, but he realized that stagnation, right? Like, oh my gosh, I forgot what it's like to be in a relationship, so he had a lot that he had to kind of like clear up on the back end with like these casual relationships, etc. But he was also like nervous, and, it felt like a big change. And so I feel like it put some kind of distance and obstacle between you. I heard somebody say on a TikTok, they were like, sin separates. Remember that sin separates. Error to sin is to error, in my view. It separates you from God or whatever. So him involving in these karmic relationships, it put weird obstacles between you. It put distance between the two of you, and it put these obstacles are very karmic. It's like other things that now he's got to work through because he chose to be separated from his conscience for so long, Now that's where this friends with benefits thing kind of comes up to the surface. And I think why he didn't tell you, etc. I think he was like afraid of your reaction because, and he kind of knows this, again, he keeps this stuff very like on the back burner in his psychology, right? This man always knew that he wanted to have I think like a monogamous, committed relationship, that led to a marriage. I think he always knew that. And the thing is, if that's important to you in your life, you kind of always know, right? That when you meet that person and when you're serious about that person, they have to feel comfortable, and you have to build that trust between the two of you. Otherwise, how is this relationship going to be healthy, and how are you both going to feel happy and safe and stable in that relationship? And so he always kind of known that if, when that person showed up, that if they weren't comfortable with like his friends with benefits situations being around, he would need to cut them off so that they would be comfortable, right? Like in a way. And because of that, a lot of people kind of, if you think through these things beforehand, it's like you almost have to care less about a friends with benefits because, and this is where I'm saying there's some karmas coming in where they're learning lessons about this. Like it's weird and gross that they call themselves friends because it's not actually built on friendship, but we'll talk about that here in just a second. They're using that term, both of them, to actually hide from themselves and from the reality of who each of them are as people and what's actually been going on in the situation, which again, we'll talk about here in just a second. And he didn't want to do that because he's got some guilt and shame that's wrapped up in this friends with benefit situation and involving with this person to begin with and the person that he was during that time. And it is like meeting you. He wanted to turn that corner in his soul. And I think it reconnected him, but in like a rejuvenating, refreshing way with maybe his structures, his values, his principles. And he likes the person that he is whenever he is with you because he's living up to those things, and it gives him like a dimension of fulfillment that he didn't know that he could have. Like he feels happier with you than he did like thought and bopping. It was actually a shit, slimy, grimy kind of way to live. And I think he's coming up out of that energy. But like I said, there's a lot of reckoning that needs to go on internally and externally in order for him to fully distance himself from that past. Because I think on the one hand, in meeting you, he's telling himself he was not that person anymore, etc. But this friends with benefits is like the last holdover from that time in his life. But again, I think he had that person around you, didn't disclose that information. And I think maybe at first this could have been like a progressive thing. At first he was like, well, I mean, I don't want to disclose that. And it's not because he wants to hook up with her. I don't really think he cares that much about that aspect, right? And I'll explain more what I mean here in just a second. But he's like, well, maybe I shouldn't disclose it because I don't know where this is going to go. Like we might break up yet. And then like as the relationship progressed, he's like, well, I mean, now we're all friends or something here like that. I don't know. But this feels like a progressive thing where he was kind of kicking this rock down the road in disclosing this. But this disclosure to you, it's wrapped up in this kind of like reckoning, and it's this kind of tower energy. He's trying to outrun this tower energy, and it all seems like connected here to this karmic relationship he has, because they are karmics to each other. They act like they are such good friends. Honey, they're not. They're not. Not really. I mean, I think they think that they are, but that's not what's actually going on here. And everybody here has got karmas to work out around that particular situation. So again, you may have found out about this, and it might have, or you may find out about this, and it's going to push everything again back up to, it's like this is the end of the line kind of thing. This is like the peak experience where something kind of needs to be done about this. But he doesn't want that outcome. He doesn't want that to be the position that he's in. But he can no longer stay in this position of denial. He doesn't get to hide behind that anymore, because he is at the end of the line, and this is the position that he is in. And his own actions have put him there. So he doesn't want to have to let her go and lose that quote unquote friendship relationship. And he actually does feel emotional about it. Like I can feel pinpricks behind my eyes and this water energy kind of like bubbling up. And for you, that's going to be a problem. The why he doesn't want to let her go, why he's so attached to this relationship, why he's getting so emotional about it. The why to that question now becomes so imperative to every single person involved in this little karmic dance that he's got going on. For you, it's like, do you have feelings for this person? And the answer to that is no. And you'll see why that's kind of wrapped in with the tower. For him, it becomes important, the answer to that question, because it's him admitting to himself who and what he was in the past. But him admitting that and taking this action is actually severing himself from that old version of self to begin with. And I think this would be a tower moment for him, right? So the answer to this question has the potential of being a tower moment for you. And for him, right? Like internally. And also for this person that was this friends with benefits situation person and other people that were potentially involved. Because the reality is that he doesn't want people to kind of realize is that he has been the betrayer in the situation. Right? In the past, he actually was. And it's because of what we've already talked about. He was so selfish in the past in regarding his schmegsual life, his relationships with women, and the way that he pursued that. He only thought about one thing. He wanted schmegs, and he didn't want to be bothered about it. So he created this whole ethos around, well, if I want it and you want it, it's not really a big deal. Here's where this has become a reckoning, okay? Because this friends with benefit situation that he involved with this, I think it's a lady here, but again, take it however it resonates. It was an affair that they engaged with on her side. And not only that, but I feel that this masculine here that we've been talking about knew the person that she was in a relationship with. And I think could have been friends with this masculine. There's a strong friendship energy actually between these two masculine energies that either had already been established and needed to be valued and sustained and preserved, or that's where the true friendship energy truly was. Okay. So these two are having an affair behind this person's back. And this is a kind person. This is a good person. So remember back when I was telling you this worldview that he had, it's like, okay, well, as long as it's consensual between these two people, between myself and the person that I'm with, then it's not immoral. So she was willing to sleep with him, right? She was consenting in that way. And what that did is that, notice there's no self-awareness on his side of it. Because he just wants schmegs. So I want schmegs, and you know that I do. So if there is a little bit of an honest thief quality here with this masculine, where that's not good enough for him. He thinks he's better than her and anybody that would do that, because if he had a partner, he would not be unfaithful. He would not be a consenting partner. And I do think there's an honesty to that. Like that's how he thinks about that situation. But it's her life. She's the one in a relationship, you know? She's the one cheating on a partner, and she's still consensual. So there's nothing immoral according to him, except for, and so he tells himself that, right? These two, like, right, consenting adults, so there's nothing immoral, right? Except for that's not the only thing that's going on here, because, and this is where he's tied up around maintaining that image of himself as a good person, because we have the ability to reason. We have the ability to become aware of our actions and the impact that it has on other people emotionally, the splitting up of relationships. He could choose to be a person that cares about how his actions affect his friends or just genuinely good people around him in his community. And he could be above that. He could say, I actually am not a consenting sexual partner under these kind of conditions. And I also don't get turned on by putting myself inside of people who are okay with this kind of behavior. It doesn't get me going, actually. Because what if we create a child, and I don't want that to be what they learn from us. You know what I'm saying? I would hate for them to be stuck with that legacy, etc. I'm actually not consenting in this situation. So he needed to actually look at himself and look at the conditions under which he is a consenting partner. Because he is a human being that has the capacity for reason and empathy and compassion and to take responsibility for his actions and the consequences. And he did not do that. And he knew the moment that he did it, that it was wrong to engage with that. And he also doesn't know how to look at her in this situation, because he knew that it was wrong and he knew that he could have prevented it. But so he looks at her as being this victim of his persecutor nature, his selfishness. And she is. But she's the only person in this situation that is not purely a victim. Her partner, purely a victim. This divine feminine here, purely an innocent. I don't think she was involved in the original situation, but she's certainly been victimized by this secret that they carry between the two of them and him having her up in her face. Those are the two pure victims in this situation. The innocents, the people that didn't contribute to the situation, but now are receiving repercussion. This friends with benefits is not innocent. I'm not saying she's like just a terrible, horrible, bad person or anything like that, but I'm saying she is also a persecutor, and she knew just as much that it was wrong and wanted to do that as well. Because the two of them, theirs is a relationship based on selfishness and betrayal and mutual exploitation. See what I'm saying? This is not friendship. They both wanted to profit from this particular relationship. And the people around, I think, do know something is up. Like, this is not natural between them, because they don't have a natural connection. And that's why they sully the good name of friendship, these two. There's a lot of friendship karmas that are being learned here. I think as the divine feminine, you probably learned like, oh my gosh, people can be up in your face and be keeping the secret. Like, oh my gosh, like what is friendship, etc. Also, your partner is not exactly, I think every good relationship, romantic relationship, is built on a solid foundation of friendship. I know how to be a good friend to somebody, because friendship requires a certain level of like, selflessness. I'm not trying to like get anything out of you, or like at least mutual benefit. It shouldn't be based on exploitation or anything like that. So I think you've kind of learned that. Where these two sully the good name of friendship. There's no natural connection. So what I mean by that is, and I think this is very true as well, people are not stupid. And I think what's going on is kind of tropey between the two of them, especially with what they want to profit from the situation. I think she's hopelessly in love with him. And so if your ears perked up, you're probably correct about that. I think that there's a reason she slept with him, right? Like, she is kind of following him around with a puppy. He can see it, but remember, he shut down his conscience energy. So he might be pretending that he doesn't see it and that that's not what he's exploiting in her, but he is. So what he wants to profit from the situation, we've already said 100 times, he wants what he wants, right? He wanted the schmegs, and he didn't want to have a conscience about it. That's as far as it goes for him. He honestly, and this is what he's trying to run from, he didn't care about her. He didn't care. You couldn't do this to somebody if you cared about them. That's what friendship is about. He would be investing in her partnership and maybe the family. And I think that was actually how this situation could have gone. And actually, let me just say this part of it really quick, because his first karmic decision, test, intersection had to do with this masculine energy that this friends with benefits is attached to, because his actual friendship energy, the strongest one in the room, whether they already had a friendship or not, is with that masculine energy. And he had to choose whether he was going to pursue a friendship with that masculine, or if he was going to pursue a friendship here with this feminine friends with benefits that he doesn't have a natural connection to. He does have a natural friendship inclination with this other masculine. If he chose, this is a hidden motive. And I'm talking about psychologically. This is what he doesn't want to become aware of, but it's not an excuse, karmically speaking, because he shut that part of himself down. He chose to shut that part of himself down, right? Because if he chooses to pursue a quote unquote friendship with this female friends with benefits, it's exploitative. It is because he wants to be up near her, he's opportunistic around potentially exploiting that relationship for Schmegs. That would be the only reason, because he doesn't feel a natural connection to her. He doesn't admire her or respect her, or right? That's not the nature of it. He has that though with this masculine energy. He does genuinely like that masculine. They could have been lifelong friends. So you could have had that actually in your relationship, where he would have known her as an acquaintance from developing the strong bond with this masculine energy. And I think the two of them would have ended up like married or together for a long time, could have had family together. And then you and this masculine would have had your own family. And now you've got like lifelong friends. That's what it feels like this could have been if everybody had learned their lessons like in friendship, and you've got a community. This to me feels like couples that could have, and again, it's like she's a filler for him. Her natural place in his life is Aquarian energy. It's like on the outskirts of his like broader network, but he's got a close friendship with this masculine. This feels like a couple where, you know, if somebody's sick, the other family brings over dinner, you know, a couple times a week while somebody's in the hospital or something. That's what it feels like this could be. And that's the actual value in this situation. But he was short-sighted in that devil energy and felt like, I think I can exploit the situation from Smregs, because he could see that she was enamored with him, or, you know, something like that. And he weaponized that against her. He didn't look out for her in that way. Not at all. See what I'm saying? So, I mean, I hate to say this in such a black and white terms, but bad person right from the jump, right? He was disingenuous right from the jump. Didn't have to be, but that was this kind of karmic situation. And he knows that about himself. He knows, and he is taking on a lot of the responsibility, which is why he sees her as the victim in this situation. And and I think that's why he doesn't want to sever the relationship, is because, but actually, let me finish this. So we talked about what he wanted out of that situation, Schmegs. And what she wanted is to be attached to him. But this doesn't come from a place of love. For her, this is a self-confidence issue. And I think it is for him as well, because he does get a confidence boost and a social status boost, because people around can, and you need to know this, they all do see that she kind of is attached to him, and that he's the more attractive one, and he has like higher social status, and that she's hopelessly and hopefully kind of following behind, hoping for crumbs. And that boosts his social status for future mate partners. Like, see, I'm so attractive that I don't really, he does feed into it, but I don't think he feeds into it in public, like her fantasy. He's feeding her delusion about it. And I think the biggest sin here is he doesn't put a stop to it, because he could put a stop to it. He could make very clear what their relationship is, and that would be not hurting her, you know? It's just that he doesn't do that because he gets the ego boost and potentially the Schmegs out of the situation. And he doesn't want her to see that about him, because he knows he betrayed her in viewing her like this. And that's honestly that's the strongest connection that they have. I mean, I think he thinks that she's got a pleasant personality, and that's why he doesn't want to terminate this relationship. He cries only for himself, because he doesn't want to be revealed as being that cold towards her in the situation, right? So now what she wants in this situation is to be attached to him. She wants a bump in her social status. And she wants to be associated with him in public, not just on a friend level. Because I think this person maybe has a lot of friends, everybody in the group's of friends, but she wanted to be associated as having like a deep, intimate, emotional bond with him. That is the way that she feels like she can stand out, is like through him and through having a tight-knit, quote unquote, association with him. But it's not natural. And I actually think your natural bond with this masculine was a trigger for this person, because I think these two, this is what I'm saying, this is kind of tropey between them. These two have to tell everybody within a certain radius of them at some point that they're just such good friends. And they have to. And I don't think that, I'm hearing this. Who would tell people that these two are just such good friends? It would be one of the two of them. It would never come naturally and organically from the group that had not first received this propaganda from the two of them. That's because when you observe these two from a distance, it doesn't read like that. It doesn't read, oh, this is a close friendship. It reads like maybe this is a touch flirty and maybe physically intimate. And she intends for that to continue. And she, even if he has a significant other, and it can continue only if they hide behind the guise of friendship. So that's her strategy for having a leg to stand on and to be able to say like, what, are you insecure or something like that? Or to hide behind like, oh, I'm not trying to do anything. But really, she wants him for all the wrong reasons, but she wants him, and she is subtly sabotaging. Friendship karma. She is subtly sabotaging, and she has tried to subtly sabotage this divine feminine. So if you are this divine feminine and you're feeling like it's not always friendly coming from that corner, you're absolutely right. where that person's trying to make you feel insecure, and they try to rival you for in this public sphere of like, well, it's this kind of subtext of, well, I'm the one that's more emotionally intimate towards this masculine, when no way in hell, because these two, they cling to the arbitrary markers of friendship, or she does. I really think it's just one of them that kind of is always putting out there, oh, we're such good friends. It's this propaganda campaign. And I think it's the one that is least attractive, and there's this chaser energy. And I think the other one just puts up with it, doesn't put the kibosh on it. And it's because they cling to these arbitrary markers of friendship, things that in a genuine friendship would be a kind of signal of like, wow, that is a really deep, meaningful friendship, but they would be an afterthought. It would be like, holy shit, we've been friends for 30 years. And they would say it once, like when they realized it, 30 years later, because the whole group around is saying those people are like really good friends. And they really actually do want to be there. It's a natural kind of thing. That's not it. So I think there's this propaganda campaign that she's really like the instigator of, and it's like, well, we've been through this or we've been through that. Oh my gosh, she's like a brother to me. She's like a sister to me, whatever it is that's being said here. But it's not. It's what in the Alabama is going on if he's like a brother to you, if she's like a sister to you. And you guys are going around saying that, knowing that you bumped uglies at a certain point. What in the Alabama is going on here? Ew. And it's kind of an ancestral energy, because it's like blurring the lines, and it's that hiding. So these people hide from the reality of themselves that they involved with each other, because theirs is it's not a divine connection, because it's not mutually beneficial or like selfless. They both sought to profit something and to use each other in that relationship. And having partaken in that schmegual way, it has led to shame and guilt that they both feel inside themselves and don't want to confront directly. This is why this is a huge karmic relationship. And involving with a karmic, it's going to sever it's going to distance yourself from God and your morality, because these two, that's why they keep up this friendship. And that's why he's so hesitant to let it go. It's not because he cares about her. He doesn't. It's not cruel. It's just indifferent. He's just extremely indifferent towards her. He doesn't feel any stronger connection to her than he did anybody else that he hooked up with in that particular phase of his life. He doesn't. But it's because this was extremely immoral, is because it was an affair with that nice guy attached to the end of it, that he feels that like strong guilt and shame. And she offered him a psychological getaway car of saying, but we're just such good friends. And so it's a psychological distraction for both of these people to be in each other's lives and to have this propaganda campaign of we're just such good friends, because they can tell themselves, oh, that's why we did what we did. And ours is the longer term relationship. Shouldn't have been. I think she really could have made a go with this other guy, because this masculine could also see that whoever this other guy was loved her, actually cared about her emotionally, wanted to invest with her. He didn't want any of that, and he knew it from the jump. But he doesn't want her to know it, because it outs him as just this kind of cold-blooded a-hole, which shatters his own self-image. He's been trying to outrun that for himself. And he feels like it outs him as the betrayer in the situation. But she's a betrayer in the situation too. He looks at her like she's innocent, because he is in a certain way just so focused on his own wrongs in the situation, and trying to soothe himself internally with all of his ego defense mechanisms, and that he can't even look at her clearly to see that she is just as much of a betrayer as he is. She knew just as well. And he is right in his assessment. She was the one that had a boyfriend. And a nice one at that, and didn't end that relationship. So it's her karma too. Because I think he's taking on the responsibility, like, oh my gosh, that's going to be a tower moment for her. Because I think she's truly the only one that doesn't realize who he actually is. I think all the friends watching this situation, nobody bought into it. I think they don't call it out because they're nice people, but I really don't think anybody buys that they're just such good friends. They think she chases after him and he uses her. And neither one of them can say it out loud, the truth of what's going on. And if they're not going to say it out loud, everybody else is just kind of minding their own business and rolling their eyes, internally. Because people are pretty cluey, And I think it's, like I said, it's a trope that kind of plays out between these two. But it's a relationship based on self-deception. And so he is deceiving himself as saying like, well, I wasn't really as bad as all that back in the day, And she's the last holdover from that time in his life. And he truly doesn't care about her even now. So again, it's selfish. It's selfish. And so there's a paradox point for him where saying, you're making my wife uncomfortable. or I can't have you up around my wife, or I'm going to marry this girl, and I wouldn't have her uncomfortable a day in my life. And this is where my loyalty and my alliance is. And I'm certainly not going to have some kind of weird clandestine secret, because that's the other thing. These two did what they did and it was always wrong. And then they ran and they jumped in a trench together. And so long as they're in that trench, so long as she is in his life, he can't fully heal from that time. He needs to confront it. He needs to cry about who he actually was. But they're in this trench, this nasty, noxious, toxic trench of having the secret. And it's confusing them and everybody else involved about the intimacy in the situation, because they don't have any natural intimacy. And this kind of intimacy isn't divine, and it's not healthy, and it's not helpful or productive. This is the thing that erodes a strong sense of you being a good person. And spiritually, it puts them both in a very dangerous situation the longer they sit in that trench. They need to get up out of it, rejoin the truth. We all make mistakes, air it out, but be done with it. And he doesn't want to hurt her any more than he already has. He doesn't want to say, look, he doesn't want to be so cold as to say, I never cared about you. I used you for your body. I saw that there was an opportunity to do that. I knew it was going to hurt you. I knew it was going to undermine a relationship where somebody actually cared about you. And I didn't care about any of that. And I didn't want to admit it to myself. So when you said that we were just such good friends, I went along with it at first. And then it just you kept saying it because you're obsessed with me and you couldn't ever let it go. And every time I would try to distance myself, the difference is you. All the other girls I slept with, they had confidence and self-esteem, and eventually they moved on, and you didn't. And so I feel bad about that, but it doesn't change the way I feel about you, kind of thing. I don't have that kind of connection. And I think what she's learning something here about romantic relationships, because I think she's trying to manufacture that. And so she is learning something here about the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, because she's thinking, oh, well, he did the thing with me. He did the schmegs. And we have this close, intimate friendship, which they don't have. She's running this one-sided propaganda campaign that he's not putting a stop to because he's exploiting her. It's not friendship and it's not romantic partnership. But she says, well, we have this friendship bond and we do the schmegs. Doesn't that equal a romantic relationship? And it doesn't, because he just doesn't feel that way about her, and he never will. So he knows it's going to be a tower moment on her side. But all of that is a healing crisis energy. And I think the truth coming out about this and him being able to say, this is why she's still around, is because I cannot cope with who I was in the past. The other thing too is, like, when these two are out of each other's lives, what they absolutely should be, because again, this isn't natural, and they just hold each other back, because he should be building his intimacy with you. And I think he feels bad about that, because he's like, well, he thinks I ruined their relationship, and now I'm going to go right off into the sunset with my person. And I feel bad about that, but she ruined her own relationship. He was right about that in the beginning. I mean, he also shouldn't have engaged with it, but she had a boyfriend and she didn't. That's her karma. She could have said no as well. Right? So it's nasty what's going on psychologically between these two, and they're absolutely karmics. There is literally nothing divine going on here, and there never has been. It was always immoral and wrong for the two of them to involve with each other in that way, and they don't even like each other as friends. Like, I think they like each other just fine as like acquaintances. I don't think these people are like rude by any means, except for look what they do to people. But outside of that, but this is a blockage because of his guilt, and he needs it out of his life, and he needs it out of his consciousness. He needs to deal with it once and for all and put it to bed. That's what he needs, and she's selfishly up in his business, because again, a true friend, I think, would recognize, like, we both have to let this go, once and for all. And so he can actually build real intimacy with his partner, and she can go do the same with whoever who's around her friends or her family, because it's not real and you can't force it here. So he's trying to outrun this reckoning. Mostly, I think he was trying to outrun it in himself, having to admit, wow, I was an asshole. And I didn't care who I hurt, in pursuit of moving my junk back and forth for a few minutes at a time. And that's embarrassing, and it's low, and it's hard to admit. But I think he has actually coped with that within himself. I think he is like kind of able to admit that. And I think that basically these two as well are the ones who did the wrong in this situation. And they expect their partners to be the one that they have to take the brunt of the consequence. And like I said, they didn't do anything wrong. So they'll have each other up and around it to avoid the guilt of it, to try to make it seem normal or whatever. But that's a huge betrayal. And so for this divine feminine, I feel like this is a tower energy in a good way, where it kind of sets her free from having to suffer and having to, because it's her quality of life that goes down, having this person around. And also she doesn't, I think they have a natural bond, like they have a good relationship. This divine masculine loves this divine feminine, right? But she doesn't have the intimacy she could have with him. She doesn't have the quality of partner she could have with him because this person is around. So she's just being made to suffer this whole time, and she didn't do anything wrong. And that's where the tower moment is. It's like, oh my gosh, I thought it was my fault. I thought I wasn't enough. I thought, I thought you were in love with her. And he's not at all. And so he does kind of have this karmic question on his plate of, I have to hurt that person. I'm hurting my divine feminine every single day. And I'm possibly going to lose that relationship that means everything to me over something that means nothing to me that I just can't admit, So it's like he's got to rip the Band-Aid off. And that's what I'm saying. This is kind of like peaking up to this like crescendo moment, but he doesn't know how to say it in a way that makes him not look terrible because he's the betrayer in this situation. He betrayed his divine feminine. I think he betrayed his own value system. He feels like he betrayed his parents, I think I just heard. And like whatever tradition they grew up in. And he wants to live up to that and genuinely wants to live up to that, I think. He knows he betrayed this friend, this masculine friend that was an actual friend, either by not pursuing a friendship with him. And by the way, he could have not pursued a friendship with him, again, subconsciously, when he was in that position where he was putting his conscience to sleep because he didn't want to have to look at him as a person. That again would have alerted him that what he's doing is wrong and that he's going to care about this guy as a friend. And that would look like, hey girl, your girl's cheating on you. He should be the one to say that to him, let alone not being the person she's cheating with. None of this is what good, it's not a good thing to do. And he could have just walled himself off emotionally from that masculine instead of actually building a relationship, so he betrayed him and he also betrayed her because he gave her the impression that he cared about her when he didn't. I think she also had an assumption that if somebody does the schmegs with you, it's because they have an emotional connection to you. He knew that wasn't true, and he didn't correct that within her as well. So, yeah, this is a lot, and it is this kind of like reckoning moment. But if you are this divine feminine, and you would probably be confused because you know that he loves you. You do know that, but then you kind of can't understand why he's hurting you. And why he would have lied like this, because it's not a schmegsual betrayal, but it is this kind of like social betrayal, of you deserved to know this, so that it really was. And he even thought this before. It always was your decision to make if she should be around or not, if that was something that you were comfortable with or not. He always believed that, but he just didn't want to have to actually tell her to go away because it brings up all of his own guilt and shame, if that makes sense. So I'm not saying any of this is right, wrong, or indifferent. Obviously the cheating is wrong and the lying and all of that. Like what these two did is wrong, and they're karmics to each other. That's why it's an absolute abomination that these two refer to each other as friendship. This is not friendship. This is mutual exploitation. This is self-deception. This is betrayal. And she especially runs this propaganda campaign, and he tolerates it because it makes him feel like he's not a POS, and that's not what he was actually doing. Because to come to terms with that is to come to terms with, he never wanted to be her friend. He never thought of her as a friend. He would be completely fine with her not. And he's actually more naturally drawn to her guy as a friend and other people in the situation. And certainly his divine feminine, a league of their own compared to what's going on here. So anyways, that's what I have for you. If that resonates, please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Bye.